The night air hangs heavy over Jerusalem. Beyond the stone walls and beneath the glinting dome that dominates the Temple Mount, a shadow moves silently through the old city's ancient streets. He is not a soldier, not a politician, not a prophet. He wears no crown, holds no weapon. And yet his presence marks the return of something that has not walked the earth in nearly 2,000 years. He is a priest, but not just any priest. He has been appointed, anointed, prepared, and soon he may step into a role that sets the final events of prophecy into motion. Meanwhile, the world sleeps beneath the glow of screens and the noise of global headlines. Wars erupt, nations fall. Artificial intelligence rewrites reality. But in a quiet stone building near the Western Wall, sacred garments are being folded. Golden vessels are being polished. And an altar built from unhewn stones stands ready for fire. According to the prophet Daniel, there will come a time when sacrifices in Jerusalem are suddenly restored, and then violently stopped. A man of lawlessness will rise. The temple will be defiled, and the countdown to the end will begin. But before the sacrifice can be stopped, it must first begin. And that requires one man, the high priest of Israel. The question is no longer whether prophecy will be fulfilled. It's how close we are, and whether the first move has already been made. Stay with me. What we're about to uncover could change how you see the world forever. A hidden appointment in Jerusalem. It happened without fanfare. No international press conference, no official government endorsement. Just a quiet prophetic ripple in the holiest city on earth. In 2016, a group of 71 rabbis, members of the restored Sanhedrin in Jerusalem, made a decision that could change the course of prophetic history. They appointed a man as high priest. His name, Rabbi Baruch Kahane. He is not a myth, not a symbolic figure. He is a real descendant of Aaron, trained in the ancient laws of sacrifice, temple purity, and Levitical procedure. Rabbi Kahane wears the garments. He has held the sacred tools. He has overseen trial sacrifices using animals permitted by Israeli law. And most remarkably, he is ready. If the temple were accessible today, he could begin offering sacrifices within weeks. To many outside the world of biblical prophecy, this event was a mere religious footnote. But to those who understand the structure of end-time prophecy, this appointment carries tremendous weight. According to Daniel 9:27, sacrifices must resume in Jerusalem before they are abruptly halted in a moment of apocalyptic betrayal. But those sacrifices cannot begin without one vital piece: a functioning high priest. Rabbi Kahane's appointment quietly places that final piece on the board. This isn't a theory or a dramatization. It's a living reality. While most of the world remains fixated on economic forecasts, political scandals, and technological breakthroughs, a man in Jerusalem is preparing to step into a role that hasn't existed since the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. And yet, he is only one part of a larger revival. Because this priest is not alone. He is being surrounded by the return of something ancient, sacred, and prophetic. The return of the Levitical priesthood. From the moment God thundered from Mount Sinai, the priesthood was never man's invention. It was divine. Exodus 28 and 29 record God's exacting instructions to Moses. Aaron and his sons would be set apart, clothed in holy garments, anointed with sacred oil, and consecrated to minister before the Lord. The role of high priest was the pinnacle of spiritual intercession. Only he could enter the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement and sprinkle blood on the mercy seat for the sins of the entire nation. This wasn't ritual for ritual's sake. It was a shadow of something far greater, the ultimate high priest, to come, Jesus Christ. Hebrews 8:5 calls the earthly priesthood a copy and shadow of the heavenly things. Yet while Jesus fulfilled the priestly office, eternally biblical prophecy tells us that the earthly system would make a dramatic return in the final days. Hosea 3:4 predicted a long season of silence. The Israelites will live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stone, without ephod or household gods. For nearly 2,000 years, this has been Israel's reality. No temple, no priesthood, no altar, until now. In our generation, something ancient is awakening. For the first time in centuries, Israel is not only acknowledging the priesthood, but reviving it intentionally, publicly, and with prophetic precision. And they are doing so not just through tradition, but through science. Geneticists, including Dr. Karl Skorecki, have identified what's known as the Cohen modal haplotype, a unique Y chromosome signature that consistently appears in Jewish men who claim descent from Aaron. This discovery has given modern credibility to what oral tradition carried for generations. But science alone isn't the goal. Hundreds of men identified as Levites are now being trained in ancient temple procedures. They are learning how to handle sacred vessels, perform sacrifices, sing Levitical psalms, and uphold ritual purity, all under rabbinic instruction based on the Mishnah and Halakha. This is not folklore, it is prophecy becoming practice. And that raises a haunting question for those watching with spiritual eyes. If the Levitical priesthood is being restored, what are they preparing for? The Temple Institute preparing for sacrifice. Tucked away in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem's Old City, just steps from the Western Wall, is an organization that few tourists truly understand. It's called the Temple Institute. And what they're doing has stirred whispers among theologians, eschatologists, and watchers of prophecy for decades. Founded in 1987 by Rabbi Yisrael Ariel, a veteran of the Six-Day War and a devoted scholar of temple law, the Institute has one mission: to prepare everything necessary for the restoration of Levitical worship in a third temple. This is not a museum. This is not religious nostalgia. This is prophetic infrastructure in motion. Every detail matters. Inside their workshops and display halls, artisans and rabbinic experts have recreated the sacred vessels exactly as described in Exodus and Numbers. Ritual knives forged from biblical metals, silver trumpets, bowls, and ladles shaped with ceremonial precision, incense altars reconstructed under the guidance of archaeological and halakhic experts. The pure gold menorah, weighing more than 100 pounds and crafted from a single piece of metal, exactly as required by Exodus 25, now stands in public view, gleaming under glass like a silent testimony that the shadows of the past are reaching forward into our present. Even the garments of the priesthood have been woven anew. The ephod of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, the breastplate bearing 12 precious stones, one for each tribe, the high priest's mitre engraved in gold with the words, "Holiness to the Lord." These aren't replicas for show, they're consecrated for use. And the oil, the sacred anointing oil described in Exodus 30, once forbidden to replicate, has now been remade. Myrrh, cinnamon, calamus, and olive oil blended according to ancient prescriptions. Alongside it, the recipe for the temple incense, long protected by rabbinic secrecy, has also been restored. Every item, every element is being revived with startling precision and sacred intention. In December 2018, the Temple Institute took a bold and public step. On the outskirts of Jerusalem, They dedicated a life-size sacrificial altar built from unhewn stones, just as commanded in Exodus 20:25. A trial ceremony was conducted. Real priests in real garments handled real tools, no longer theory. A demonstration that, if given the opportunity, the system could be activated immediately. But this revival goes beyond objects and ceremonies. It reflects a mindset that believes prophecy must be fulfilled literally, that God's promises about the temple are not metaphors but blueprints. And yet, if the altar is ready and the priests are trained, what is holding everything back? Why a high priest matters for prophecy. Biblical prophecy doesn't unfold in chaos. It follows a pattern, a rhythm orchestrated by God. And at the center of that prophetic machinery lies something many overlook: the reappearance of a functioning high priest. According to Daniel 9:27, a covenant will be confirmed for 1 week, interpreted by many scholars as a 7-year tribulation period. But halfway through, something catastrophic happens. In the middle of the week, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. That he is widely understood in premillennial and dispensational teachings to be the Antichrist. And here lies the sobering implication: before sacrifice can be stopped, it must first begin. That means a system of Levitical worship must be reactivated. That means an altar must be consecrated. That means vessels must be prepared. And most importantly, that means a high priest must be in place. This is not speculation, it's scriptural logic. The Apostle Paul echoes this warning in 2 Thessalonians 2:4, describing the man of lawlessness who will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. Again, for this abomination of desolation to occur, there must be a temple functioning with priests and daily sacrifice. That's why the appointment of Rabbi Baruch Kahane is not a fringe detail, it's a foundational requirement. Without a high priest, the temple cannot operate. And without operation, prophecy stalls. But now, with this priest ready, the garments prepared, and the vessels consecrated, only one obstacle remains: access to the location where it must all take place. The scene is set. The script is ancient. And the next move could unfold not in decades, but in days. From Aaron to Kahane, the priestly thread. To understand the weight of what is happening today, we must trace the thread of priesthood that stretches from Mount Sinai to modern-day Jerusalem. It began with a divine appointment. In Exodus 28, God chose Aaron, Moses' older brother, to be the first high priest of Israel. His garments, his duties, his consecration, every detail was dictated by God himself, not tradition. Aaron was the spiritual mediator between God and the people. His role was central to the nation's worship and atonement. After Aaron's death on Mount Hor, as recorded in Numbers 20:28, the mantle passed to his son Eleazar. From there, the high priesthood was passed down through generations of Levites, specifically through the line of Aaron. It was a sacred trust until it was nearly broken. During the time of the judges, the office was held by Eli, a descendant of Aaron's son Ithamar. But Eli's sons Hophni and Phinehas defiled the sanctuary with wickedness. God's judgment was swift. In 1 Samuel 2:35, the Lord declares, "I will raise up for myself a faithful priest, who will do according to what is in my heart and in my mind." That promise found its fulfillment in Zadok, a priest loyal to David and Solomon. His descendants continued to serve even into the Babylonian exile, where the prophet Ezekiel confirmed God's favor on the sons of Zadok, Ezekiel 44:15. After the return from exile, Joshua, son of Jozadak, became the high priest and helped rebuild the altar and temple alongside Zerubbabel, Ezra 3. The prophet Zechariah saw Joshua in a vision clothed in filthy garments, symbolizing Israel's sin. But God declared those garments removed and replaced with clean robes. Zechariah 3 pointing not only to national restoration, but prophetically toward the coming of the Messiah, the true and eternal high priest. However, by the time of Rome's occupation, the office of high priest had become politically manipulated. Annas and Caiaphas, mentioned in John 18:13, operated under Roman approval. Though corrupt, they played a crucial role in condemning Jesus, the very one the priesthood had always pointed toward. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD by Titus, the entire Levitical system collapsed. The altar was gone, the garments destroyed, the veil torn, and the office of high priest disappeared into silence. According to Jewish tradition, the last known high priest was Phinehas ben Samuel, installed during the Jewish revolt just before Jerusalem fell. Historians like Josephus record that flames engulfed the sanctuary, consuming even the sacred furnishings. The silence that followed lasted almost 2 millennia, until now. The appointment of Rabbi Baruch Kahane is not just a modern gesture, it's a reawakening of an ancient thread that once connected heaven and earth. From Aaron to Eleazar, from Zadok to Joshua, from Phinehas to silence, and now to preparation. But if the priesthood has returned, what does that say about the moment we're in? The final barrier, the Temple Mount. For all the precision training and preparation, the polished vessels, woven garments, and appointed priest, there remains one immovable obstacle: the location, the Temple Mount. This is the most contested piece of real estate on earth. Sacred to Jews, revered by Muslims, and prophetically significant to Christians, the Temple Mount is more than a plot of land. It is the spiritual flashpoint of human history. It is where Solomon's temple once stood, where the Second Temple was rebuilt, where Jesus taught, overturned tables, and wept. And it is the place where, according to Daniel and Revelation, the final spiritual conflict of this age will erupt. Today, the site is controlled by the Islamic Waqf under Jordanian oversight, guarded by Israeli police, and protected by fragile international agreements. At the center stands the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque monuments of Islamic heritage. Any change in status, any Jewish movement to reclaim the Mount, risks igniting global fury. Political leaders know it. The world's powers watch it. But the rabbis preparing for the Third Temple remain undeterred. They have said it clearly: if access to the Mount is granted, the temple system could be reactivated in a matter of weeks. Not years, not decades, weeks. This statement is not theological bravado. It's a logistical fact. The altar has been built and tested. The instruments are ready. The priesthood has been identified and trained. The high priest is in place. The only thing standing between the modern world and the literal reestablishment of Levitical sacrifice is a gate. And when that gate opens, prophecy will ignite like dry wood meeting fire. That raises a question few are willing to ask: what if the next war, the next agreement, or the next global crisis shifts the balance of power in Jerusalem? What if overnight the Mount becomes accessible again? What then? Because Scripture does not speak in if, but in when. Daniel 9:27 speaks of a ruler who makes a covenant, then breaks it with sacrilege. Paul writes in 2 Thessalonians of a man who will sit in the temple and declare himself to be God. Jesus warns in Matthew 24:15 of the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. All of it, every warning, every prophecy, assumes one thing, that the temple will stand again, that sacrifices will resume, that worship will rise, only to be interrupted by betrayal. And now, for the first time in 2 millennia, all the pieces are on the board. Only one move remains. Christ, the true high priest, our heavenly hope. It's easy to be overwhelmed by what's unfolding in Jerusalem. The revival of sacred rituals, the appointment of a new high priest, the restoration of ancient garments, altars, and incense, the stirring of a system that has remained dormant for nearly 2,000 years. It feels momentous because it is. But amid all this noise, we must not forget, for those who belong to Christ, the greater reality has already been fulfilled. Hebrews 4:14-15 anchors us in that truth. Since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. Unlike the priests of old, who had to offer sacrifices again and again, Jesus offered himself once for all, not in a temple made by hands, but in the heavenly sanctuary itself. Hebrews 9:11-12. And when he had finished his work, he sat down at the right hand of the Father. That is where our faith rests, not in an earthly system, but in a heavenly Savior. While the world may marvel at gold-plated vessels and the return of rituals, we look higher. While the priests of Israel prepare sacrifices of bulls and rams, we remember the blood of the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. While some await access to the Temple Mount, we have already been granted access to the throne of grace. Yes, prophecy is unfolding. Yes, the signs are aligning. But we must not be shaken, because while Jerusalem prepares to crown a man as high priest, we serve the one who was crowned with thorns, raised in power, and now intercedes for us eternally. This is not a moment for fear. It is a moment for faith. Because if everything is ready in Jerusalem, if the altar is built, if the garments are sewn, if the priest has been appointed, then the shadow is returning. But you and I, we belong to the light. There's something deeply humbling about realizing we're living in a time when prophecy is no longer locked in ancient scrolls or distant memory. It's taking shape before our very eyes. In the sacred heart of Jerusalem, the high priest is ready, the instruments are consecrated, and the prophetic clock is quietly ticking toward its next turn. Yet amid the noise, the debates, and the anticipation, we are reminded of one unshakable truth: Jesus Christ is still on the throne. While earthly priests prepare altars of stone, our high priest stands at the right hand of the Father, interceding, reigning, and calling his people to prepare not just for what happens in a temple, but for what must happen in their hearts. This journey has not been about fear, but about clarity. Not just about watching signs, but about searching our souls. Because the deeper mystery isn't when the next sacrifice will be made in Jerusalem, it's whether your life has been placed on the altar before the Lord. Will we recognize the shadow for what it is? Will we choose the eternal over the temporary? These are questions only you can answer. In a world that is rushing toward prophetic fulfillment, don't rush past your purpose. Don't miss the invitation hidden in the signs. While some look to earthly priests, we have been called to walk with the Eternal One, to rest in His finished work and reflect His holiness in the days we're given. Thank you for joining me on this sacred path today. Sacred. If this message stirred something in you, if it helped you see God's hand more clearly in these times, please like this video, share it with someone searching for truth, and subscribe for more biblical mysteries revealed with reverence and insight. Your voice helps keep this message alive. Until next time, stay watchful, stay grounded in the Word, and above all, stay near to the true High Priest, Jesus Christ. May the Lord bless you, keep you, and give you peace. See you again soon, God willing.